Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Mike, and thanks for jumping on with me this morning. Recently, the National Association of Realtors, NAR, published an article with what they published their 9 most important financial tips for realtors. And reading the article, I thought, well, there's many things in here that I agree with, and there's a couple that I don't. So I want to share their 9 tips with you, but I'm going to change it around a little bit and add some of my own thoughts in here that have come from my 3 decades in Atlanta real estate and what I've found is important for realtors. And I want you to hang with me because I took out their 9th tip, which I thought was a little bit frivolous, and I added my 9th tip, but my 9th tip is the most important of all. It trumps all the other 8 tips. So please hang with me this morning for number 9 because it is the most important thing that I can say to you today. Number 1 on NAR's list, I agree with, I've done since very early in my career, and that's use separate bank accounts for personal and business expenses. Yeah, I have bank accounts for my money, my personal money, but I pay all my expenses out of what I call a business operating account. Why? Well, it really helps me in a wide variety of ways. Number 1, keep track of my expenses. Number 2, to run financial reports on my business, to analyze where my money is going. Makes my tax preparation infinitely easier. Use separate bank accounts for personal and business. Sure, that's a good tip. Number 2, set aside money from each commission check. You know, that's their way of saying it. I say it like this. Pay yourself first. Pay yourself first. You know, that's the way that no matter what income level you achieve in life, that you can still retire or have ample savings for your later years. How? Pay yourself first, however much that is. Typically what we do, right, is we pay all of our expenses first. We pay everybody else and then we keep whatever's left. Hopefully there's something left. Nope. Determine what your savings goal should be and pay yourself first. It's a good tip. Number 3 on their list, keep good financial records. Well, I think I agree with them. I think today it's easier and more organized than it's ever been before. I use QuickBooks. It's an easy to use system. It's easy to pull reports out of it. So with a click of a mouse, I can pull a profit and loss report, a P&L. I can pull a balance sheet. I can learn how to read these things and manage them and how they're important to my business. Without QuickBooks, I probably wouldn't be able to do that. So yeah, keeping track of your expenses, it's easier than ever before. Just set a small amount of time aside every day or every week to keep that stuff updated. Number 4, set up an LLC and get an employer identification number. Sure, absolutely. The number 1 reason to set up an LLC is not for tax savings. The number 1 reason to do it is for liability and risk protection. But there are some tax advantages to it as well. I'm not here to give you tax advice this morning, but I would refer you back to your accountant, and I think they're going to say, yeah, there's some tax savings and benefits there, but there's also a level of risk protection that should be there. Okay, so that's a good tip. Number 5, this is really a pretty big one in our industry. Pay your quarterly estimated taxes on time. Now look, there's some junk going around out there. I hear it from time to time where you don't have to do quarterly estimateds anymore. That's not true. You do. There are some exceptions where they're not required. If your income is declining over the previous year, you may not be required to pay quarterly estimates, but it's still a great habit to get into. Going back to an earlier tip, have that money, go to your broker and say, out of every commission check I receive, would you withdraw this much money out of it and hold it in an account for me in trust? and so that I never see it, I never touch it, and then every quarter I'll withdraw from that to make my quarterly estimates. If you work here with me, I'd be glad to do that for you. Number 6, get an accountant or a tax professional. You know, in our industry, there's all kinds of talk about teams, but this is the kind of talk that I actually agree with. Having teams of professionals around you. I have had an accountant, the same accountant actually, for over 30 years, who I trust and rely on and seek advice and input. And I'll say things like, Harry, so if you were me, what would you be doing differently? How should I be managing my money in a different way? What ways are there that I can take more advantage of tax breaks that are legally allowable to me? What's reasonable and what's not reasonable? I rely on my accountant tremendously. He's part of my team so that I don't have to know all that. Have someone that you can rely on like that. I speak with my accountant every week. They're that much a part of my business and always have been. Hopefully you'll do the same thing. Number 7, talk to a financial advisor. Not so big on this until you check my top 6 priorities, which is a different conversation. But yes, not being self-reliant and expecting myself to know how to manage my investments and savings, but relying on trusted professionals who do this for a living and can give me good, solid advice. Sure. Matter of fact, isn't that what we say to our customers? Don't operate on yourself. Turn this over to somebody that does this for a living every day. You'll end up better off. Number 8 on NAR's list was set up an IRA or individual 401k. Yeah, saving for the future is retirement for you, key. But here's something I want to add on to that, okay? So I have a saying, it's tiny hinges swing big doors. And what I mean by that is little bitty actions done over a long period of time are where your power is. So many of us just want to save the big chunks of money. You know, when I have $5, $10, $15, $20,000 left over a month, then I'll put it into savings. And almost all good advice is, no, drip it in. Drip it in. Little bitty amounts. If it's $5 a day, that's fine. That's actually better. Drip it in. Small little drips. Drip, drip, drip. Every day, every week, over a long period of time. And watch how your money grows. Now, number 9 on their list, I've crossed out and I've replaced it with my own personal financial tip for you this morning. And that's this. Cash. Cash, cash, and more cash. Accumulate cash. Be an accumulator of cash right now. This may change, but for right now, I think things are still uncertain enough as we look out over the next 5 years where I think cash is king. And I want you sitting on, at minimum, 6 months of personal expenses. Whatever it costs. If it costs you $5,000 a month to pay your bills, then I want you to have at least, at minimum, $30,000 cash, liquid, available to you. Not put somewhere where you can't get it. That's a different stack of money. But cash, liquid, available to you. And that will help you sleep better at night. That will give you some peace and security. And that's where we need to start. So while it's number 9 on the list, it's really number 1 to me. Cash, cash, and more cash. Above all else, except paying your taxes. And this is Mike. Another episode. We're trying to help you go out there and make it happen for yourself today.